All right, hello, welcome in. I'm Brigantia Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Welcome to this Monday morning live stream. Well, Monday afternoon, I should say. Give everyone a chance to come in here. As you can see, that I forgot to turn off the sound over here. So okay, we're fine now. One of these days, I will have it together, gang. But as I was saying before, I could hear myself in my headphones. I've freshened up the bookcase and the altar behind me just a little bit. Give you a little view up there. See, I've changed things up a bit. Still very wintry, but the Yuletide spirit has been. Well, gang, it's just as well that one of the topics for today is the Mercury Retrograde because I am giving it plenty of ammunition with which to hit me. But now that I think we are arranged again, let's get talking about stuff. So, I have created a Subscribe Star account to help support the work of this channel and to promote the interest of the Blackbird's Brew Gilded Group. My motivation for doing this really is to just to get a few donations here and there to start gradually upgrading equipment, upgrading the kind of programs I'm able to use. And hello, Lily. Hello, Lily. Nice to have you here. But the idea is that I want to continue to get better. In the past year, and I have to give Georgia Liberty a lot of credit for this. She really convinced me to take that plunge, start playing around with all the technological tools, and start making things look a little bit more polished. So she gave me this shove, and I want to continue on down that path. So I started using the free versions of a lot of different programs. So one by one, I want to gradually start upgrading that to where I have more tools, more flexibility, so I can make better videos for you guys, so that we have a lot more options for everything. And also, by signing up for the Subscribe Star, if you're in a position to do so, that means you will be getting some perks, a few subscribers only kind of content thing that everyone does. The first thing I'm going to offer, of course, is going to be a weekly Skype call. I'm thinking about doing this on Tuesday evenings where subscribers come in, we have a conversation. The first one would probably be just kind of a hello, let's get to know each other. Who are you? What brings you here? What brings me here? What are we all involved in? And then after that, I was thinking, well, we can just kind of take requests. What do the subscribers want to talk about? I want to make sure that if someone is donating any amount of money to help me with my work, that they are getting something in return that is of value to them. And talking about what they want is certainly one of those things that I would hope would be of value to them. Also, for subscribers, they'll be getting free tarot readings. You just have to request them. As long as I don't get too overwhelmed, pretty much it's just yes, we'll just set up a time and then we'll do that. And also that whenever subscribers make recommendations about, I would love to hear you talk about this or do this kind of video or branch out into that, those requests get priorities. So there are benefits if you do choose to subscribe. At the moment, I only have a one tier, just it's $5 a month, and the link is in the description box below. And we're just gonna see if we can start making some things happen. Now, the Gilded Group, of course, is still free. It will always be free. There's always going to be a need where people can just gather together without us having to talk about money changing hands and all this other, rather vulgar stuff. Because I do think that there is a need for a community that isn't based upon, pay to play. So I want to make sure that that is maintained and that that is always available to everyone. So Gilded is not going away at all. I want to continue working on it, expanding it, and of course, facilitating conversations, facilitating people getting connected, meeting people, and having the conversations they want to have. Because it is all about people relearning how to talk to each other, relearning how to interact with each other, and it's got to be done. So next topic, I suppose you heard about that lunatic in New York who decided he was going to make a ruckus in Times Square. First thing when I opened up YouTube this morning, that was the headline that I saw in one of Tim Pool's videos. I'm like, oh man. And of course, he was doing it for jihadist reasons. And I think that's something we need to start thinking about, the consequences of ideas. A lot of modern Western civilization is based around the idea of believe what you want, but understand that you live in a society. And therefore, you are not in charge of what anyone else's believes, and you have no right to try to force them to conform to yours. And you certainly have no right to use force, let alone lethal force, against them if they do not subscribe to your ideology. That has been, just the baseline. This is what we have to agree to if we're going to have a society. And as a result, you have countries that have been able to have multiple different religions coexist relatively peacefully, different ethnic groups, just different political ideologies. That was the deal. If you can believe what you believe, but you understand you can't force someone else to do it, and you can't hurt them if they don't do what you want them to do, then you can be part of the club. And this latest attack in New York is a very horrifying and clear reminder that not everyone's really gotten the memo. We believe that in the Western civilization, but apparently other civilizations do not believe that. And there are some members who have yet to come to an appreciation for the benefits that really derives. I mean, you want to have a free society where you have ideas and innovation, and people are moving forward, and people are actually creating and doing something useful in the world. You have to make room for disagreement. You have to make room for people doing things you don't like. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to be best buds with everybody. I mean, goodness knows I am not. But it does mean that you acknowledge their right to exist. I mean, I don't really think that it's that hard. But apparently it was for this jihadist in New York. And I think we need to start looking at some ideologies. And when we see people who subscribe to them acting violently, the question that comes up in my mind is, well, was that a bug or was that a feature? And that's something that's difficult to talk about on YouTube for obvious reasons. And there's all kinds of people already out there making excuses, saying, "Well, he doesn't really represent what that religion is about." Well, okay, can you demonstrate that from their source material? Because if you're going to say that's not what the religion is about, you have to say that it's because of this source material he was acting in contradiction to it. However, if you've done any reading about that religion at all, and after 9/11, I grew into a passing familiarity with what it was. People are attacking, the entire country for that. I kind of want to understand why. But I came across it. I mean, there are commandments saying, this is how you had to deal with the unbelievers. And I would like to point out to my pagan brethren, because some people do like to make excuses for this religion. Have you read the passages that address people who are polytheistic in their beliefs? Yeah, we're like bottom of the barrel as far as the totem pole goes from that perspective. I mean, I think you have to acknowledge that not everyone out there is going to be believing in things that permits them to have a worldview in which you can exist in it. Because let's be real, it isn't just the Western world that this religion has had issues with. It isn't just Judaism or Christianity or polytheistic religions, whether it's pagan or Hindu or whatever else. This is a religion that has had difficulties getting along with any religion that is not itself, getting along with any society that conducted its business differently than what it did. Now, I think it's fair to criticize Western society in a lot of ways. I mean, I do. There's definitely things we can work on, but I don't think it's for another civilization to say, "Oh no, we're just going to conquer you, and you're going to start doing things our way because we've decided we're better." No, 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 no. You don't get to do that. So I think that's a little something that we could stand to take seriously. And whether we're talking about this religion in question or we're talking about political leftism, let's be real. If someone believes in an ideology that at its base says our way is the only way and everyone either has to conform or they cannot be part of the picture, take that fucking seriously. Take it seriously. And here's Druid Fox. Thank you for joining me, Druid. Appreciate it. Forced conversion is not actual conversion. If someone says they believe something, just so you leave them alone, they don't really believe it, so you haven't converted anyone. I mean, absolutely right. You are 1,000% right. But boy, I tell you what, it sure doesn't stop people. And that really says something about someone's value system. They would rather someone lie to them than just have an honest disagreement. They would rather, try to intimidate someone into telling them the things they want to hear and put on a good enough performance to where they can persuade themselves that they've been convinced. They would rather have that lie than they would rather deal with a society in which not everyone is seeing things their way. If that is not an indictment on someone's belief system or someone's worldview, I don't know what is. I mean, that is just absolutely horrific. And that's one of the beautiful things about paganism is that we understand that there are different perspectives. Even if someone is working strictly with one pantheon, as I do, there's a plethora of different opinions and views on life within that pantheon. The gods are individuals. They have their own individual priorities, their strengths, and their weaknesses. They see things in a very different way. Ah, hello, Marcus. Nice to see you here. Hello. But they're all very different. And so you see that it takes all of those different worldviews in order to create a world. And you need people with different temperaments to actually create a society. Imagine that. So, I mean, we're accustomed to that. We're also accustomed to the idea of, you can't actually force someone to change their minds. You can frighten them, but you can't force them to change their minds. And maybe that's something the rest of the world could actually benefit of learning from us. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. I know I didn't have this in the title or in the description, but right before I went live, I was listening to another video. It was dealing with that Andrew Tate situation. Now, I don't know what he's done, what he hasn't done, and all of that other stuff, so I can't begin to comment on that. But I did hear an interview for him after the fact and he said something that really struck me that I think actually is worth talking about. He said, he was talking about guilt and innocence when you are accused of a crime or dealing with the justice system in any way. He says it isn't about you having the truth on your side or the law on your side. It isn't about can you afford a good lawyer to get you out of a legal situation. He says if the powers that be have decided that they want you out of the way, that you are guilty, they will find something that you are guilty of, or they will paint you as being something that they've decided you're guilty of, and they will just keep hammering away at you until they finally get you their way and destroy you. And I thought that needs to be on every billboard. People need to have that tattooed on the inside of their eyelids. He said plenty of things that I have disagreed with very strongly in the past and present and likely future. But on that particular point, he is absolutely correct. We are not dealing with people in power who have any kind of high minded principles or who feel themselves bound by the laws that they claim to represent. No, 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 no. They are, power hungry, control freak maniacs, and they don't want anyone who's preaching any kind of idea that threatens their hold on power. And what is one of the one thing that Andrew Tate actually does get right that I can't agree with is that he does promote the idea of masculinity, of men needing to take charge of themselves, take charge of their lives, develop more of a warrior's mentality of saying, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to do something, I'm going to achieve something. And I might not feel good about it, I might feel great about it, but it doesn't change the fact that I need to go out and do what I need to do. That's a very powerful message, and I mean that benefits everyone, but I think it also particularly benefits men. It makes men stronger when they lean into that natural instinct of theirs. And of course, when they are rewarded for doing that, you create a positive feedback loop and all society benefits. So he is correct about that. And of course, this is where we look at the powers that be again. They do not want someone, they particularly do not want a group of men saying, we have some self-esteem, we know what our role in the universe is, and we know that it's not for you to rule over us. It's not for you to tell us that we have to be weak so you can stay powerful. It's not for us to be weak so that you can maintain control and wreak havoc on everything that we love and everything that we've ever tried to build. And I want to show off Marcus's comment. It's all about intimidation. 1,000% agree. It absolutely is about intimidation. And the powers that be are doing everything they possibly can. That's why they have to go after Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson and anyone who has a grain of sense, who has a prominent following. Now, if they also happen to be a controversial figure, especially if that controversy is for a good reason, in the case of Andrew Tate, that gives them more ammunition. They just say, oh, you see, we said these people were horrible, and look, he is horrible, and look, we have found examples, and now we're going to prosecute him for his horribleness. So now you are not allowed to listen to him or anyone who sounds anything even remotely like him. I mean, it's a nice little grift on the part of the powers that be, isn't it? I tell you what. It's so manipulated. I am so sick of that. I mean, none of these people, if they were operating on anything that even remotely, involved honest terms or doing things properly or having any kind of universal set of rules that everyone in that society is held to, they would never be anything. I'm telling you, these people who have us under the thumb, they are just, the only thing they're really good at is projecting an illusion of strength. Nothing else. If they did not have the support of police and military, they would be overthrown tomorrow. This is how weak they are. If they did not have that veneer of respectability, you would realize that they're not that bright. They're utterly immoral, and none of them have any competency of any description. I mean, you could not run a coffee shop with the level of intelligence that is averaging in Congress these days. You couldn't do it. It wouldn't be successful. There would never be coffee in stock. No, their customer service, oh, don't even get me started. It would be total crap. I mean, this is who they are. They cannot actually function in the world. So they have to put on this theater. They have to put on these airs. They have to hide behind laws that they create that creates this little web of protection about them. I mean, they are. I put them underneath gangsters and people who engage in organized crime because they at least have to have a level of competency. I don't like what they do. I am not a fan of how they conduct their affairs, but at least they have to be competent. Druid. Is that why What's Her Face had to give up bartending? I presume you mean AOC. You know what? I bet it was. I Judging from the way she does questioning in Congress and her TikTok videos and everything else that she's quoted as saying, I find it very difficult to believe that she has the mental space to really focus on what everyone ordered for a round of drinking, doing it correctly, and getting the right drink to the right person. Um, yeah, I think we should at least toy with that possibility. That might be part of what's going on there. And I think she's a very good representation. I think she's the mask off of what the elites really are. Vapid nobodies. Vapid nobodies who are desperate for power so that they can pretend they have some meaning or impact on life. It's really pathetic. I mean, the most modest, low income household that's at least filled with sincere people who care about each other and who are working hard in order to provide for themselves and just be decent human beings. They are so much richer and so much better than any of the AOCs in this world. So that's my thought. Now, about this retrograde trifecta. The other week, I talked a little bit about the Mercury retrograde that we just started getting going with. But that's not the only planet that we have retrograding right now. We also have Mars in retrograde, and we have Uranus in retrograde. And since so many astrology channels really suck at explanations, I thought, you know what? We are just going to do the thing. We're just going to figure this out step by step. So, with Mercury retrograde, we know that Mercury was the messenger. So when it's retrograding, that means we're going to have all of the hiccups with communication and travel and electronics. But when we have Mercury retrograding in Capricorn, think about what Capricorn is in the zodiac. It is a cardinal earth sign. So it's like the leader earth sign. It's about ambition, very practical matters, strategizing, being in charge, authority. So that tells me that all put together that there's going to be a few hiccups. If you are in charge of something, if you're trying to get something done practically, if you're essentially seizing control of your life, there's going to be roadblocks and hiccups and, irritations along the way. So that's what the general sense I'm getting from that. Then we add on to it the Mars being in Gemini. We know that Mars was named after a Roman god of war. And so war, aggression, passion, that kind of thing. We know that's at play. That's the kind of energy doing. And with Gemini, well, that's a mutable air sign. And a mutable air sign means that it's changeable, it's flexible. If you live in the Midwest, you know exactly what I mean by this. You know how those days when the wind seems to shift in 12 different directions, all kind of randomly, and you start looking at the sky like, is it going green? Are we in tornado season? What's going on here? That's what a mutable air sign is really like. And so I also think about Gemini being a very communicative sign, as all air signs are. So you have this aggression of Mars. You have kind of a backwards communication style from Gemini. So things like sarcasm, frustration, passive aggressive, rather than going after something, you're kind of maneuvering things from the behind the scenes and just being, catty and bitchy, that sort of thing. That's what we're getting from the Mars. So combine that with the issues of practical matters getting messed up with the Mercury retrograde. We're starting to paint a picture for why we are in the atmosphere that we're in. Now, the last planet currently in retrograde is Uranus, and Uranus is more so a planet of rebellion. It's also about eccentricity and reinvention. So when it's going backwards, it's having trouble doing all of those things. And from what I understand, it's not really happy in the sign of Taurus, whether it's going forwards or backwards. Taurus is a little bit more about stability, tradition, doing things the way that they've always been done because it's been proven successful. And so, Uranus is kind of chafing a little bit at that. And then you have Taurus being a fixed earth sign. So stubbornness, the absolute epitome of stubbornness. That's what this sign is. But it's also about fertility, stability, and just kind of the sensory delights. So in some ways, if you can maneuver that energy around, you can make it work. But the planet Uranus, it's still not very comfortable. So we have communication issues. We have passive aggressiveness. We have a really hard time getting things done. And we have, these competing impulses. If I want to change and do something new and different, or, oh, I want to do something safe and stay the same and to have, kind of guaranteed success. We have this messed up feeling, and it's all happening around the turn of the year. And honestly, as we're going into what's going to be a pretty hectic and pretty nasty political season. I mean the games will really begin next year, as once we get closer, once we get past primaries and we get into the general election. That's going to be absolutely wild. But I mean, we're going to see all the earthquakes that lead up to it. I think more than anything else, these three planets doing what they're doing right now, it's all about that restlessness, this whole sense of it's not working. And I think that's where so many of us are. And I think finally we are in that moment where people are willing, or at least more willing, to consider maybe we don't keep doing the things that make us feel like we're banging our head against the wall. Maybe we stop that. Maybe these people who bring a bad atmosphere to our social circles or within our families, maybe we don't keep inviting them to dinner. Maybe we're a little bit more choosy about what it is we're getting up to. Maybe, just maybe, we have to even start changing ourselves. And I think that's when we can start seeing real social and societal changes, when people are start actually, instead of talking about what they want to work on about themselves, or talking about how difficult it is for them to change, that they just buckle down and they start doing the work to actually make those adjustments that they know that they need to make, whether it's about being more balanced as a human being, or being a little bit more proactive if they've tended to be passive, or if they're very outspoken and boisterous, about maybe tempering that. I mean, you can be a very free speech advocate without being an asshole. So I think some people, they are going to be learning that lesson of, it actually does matter how I say things, and maybe if I said things a little bit better, the message would get through instead of people just being put off by the attitude. I think once we start seeing people actually doing these things, that's when we're going to start seeing those ripple effects throughout the rest of society. And it's about time. It's overdue, but I think we have a lot of possibilities. And I want to make it clear, is just because we can start making beneficial changes, it does not mean that we're not going to continue reaping the consequences of of the actions and all of the seeds that were planted from decades ago. That is going to have to come through fully to fruition. I mean, it'd be like any other thing. You plant a garden, you have all kinds of cucumbers. You didn't leave any room for anything else, so you're going to have to harvest those cucumbers before you start expanding your garden into other things. Now, once they're out of the way, that's when you can start, tilling the soil and doing other things. And I think that's where we're at. We're just at that point where we're starting to get those cucumbers out of the garden, and now we can start thinking, okay, maybe we'll have carrots and peas and lettuce and other things. Choose your metaphorical vegetable in this scenario. But we have to get things out of the way. We have to experience the consequences of the actions, because no matter how bad things are, and in some ways, sometimes the worse things are, the better it is long term, because it makes the point. And a lot of people have spent a lot of years of their lives specifically evading getting the point. But as they start seeing that all of these bad ideas that people warned them for years are really shitty ideas, oh, here's the consequences, and you can't escape them, and you can't pretend like it was someone else because your own indifference contributed to that situation. Once we get through that, I think that will finally help people. The last people who are going to connect the dots, that will be the moment when they finally do connect those dots. And then, those of us who are wanting to say, let's make the world a little bit better. I think we've had enough time breaking our toys. Let's start repairing things and doing something productive. We'll know who each other are at that point, and we'll be able to work a little bit more in concert towards that goal. And because the opposition, who's had the really bad ideas, has been so exposed, they'll still carry on in their delusions. Unfortunately, some of them will, but their grip on overall society will be less. It will be much harder for them to get their way, and when they try to force their way, they might be doing a lot more radical, extreme things, whether it's on an individual level or being done through the state. But that just exposes who and what they really are. And I think people are right now making that decision of, I'm not going to live like that. So exciting times ahead. We can make the most of this. I mean, retrogrades, they have a very bad habit of whatever baggage you had left over in your closet, unfinished business, things that you have not dealt with, it all rises up to the surface. So if you do find that, your own internal struggles are, a lot closer to the surface, I don't think the solution this year is going to be to just ignore it or try to tamp it down or evade dealing with it. Clear out your closet. There's skeletons in there. Get it out, make it dance, and start deciding whether or not you're going to continue carrying the same burdens that you've already been carrying. Especially if your worry tank really tends to be full, every so often you got to empty it, whatever that means. And sometimes part of leaving past struggles behind is just saying, looking yourself in the mirror and saying, you know what, this thing that's been bothering me, I've let it bother me for, this amount of time, and nothing really changed about it. What's done has been done, and I can't take it back. So I need to just start focusing on the now and the future and start to outlive it. I think that's sometimes what holds us back from our own emotional healing process, is that we forget after we've experienced some kind of loss, or we've, made a mess for ourselves in which we we made it likely we would lose something. We forget that we need to start having other experiences. We need to start filling up our lives again. We need our lives to not be centered around this thing that's causing us pain. Because as long as it's phoned in and focused on that, that's all our life is ever going to be. So it does take an act of considerable will and consistent, disciplined effort to walk away from that, to where eventually you realize, there are things I enjoy about life. There are things I am doing. I am making better choices. I'm starting to see the fruition of those better choices. And so this mistake I made or this pain I experienced in the past, it's not as important to me now because I have outlived it. So there's some food for thought, and I think that's where I'll leave it for today. Thank you ever so much for joining me on this live stream. Really appreciate it. If you're in a position to do so and you want to, please do sign up for my Subscribe Star. Help support this channel, help me make things better, and also get the perks that come along with it. And of course, remember that the Gildo community is always there, always free, and that's really where I'm focusing my efforts. All other social media is essentially just a lifeline to get people to the Gildo group and say, here's where you can start forming some actual community. That's why, all of the platforms I'm on where I post video links, and even these videos themselves, it's all about coming back to the Gildo group, because it's all about coming back together, getting to know people, and starting to forge community. And then once we realize that we can do this on the digital world, start expanding and trying to find people who we can connect with a little bit more locally and start having that more in-person contact, just as our ancestors once did. We can do it. We're part of the generation that is making it happen. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. Let's see. Today, I saw we had Lily, we had Druid, we had Marcus, and we have Star. Hi, sweetie. Thank you for coming. Thank you, everyone. I'm about to go hang out on Gilded. I'm probably going to go hit Star up for a little bit. We need some time to visit. But yeah, come see us on Gilded. Link in the description box below. I will see you guys later. Have a good Monday. Bye.